Welcome. You're live at the Pretty Sister podcast. Thank you for being here, especially today as we jump into our last part of our series of coaching with Johnny Covey. And today I have a special guest on with me, Dana Linder, who is a Noom health and wellness coach and happens to be my sister-in-law. So she really is a very pretty sister. So I am excited to have you with us today. He is going to coach Dana live today on his head to heart coaching process, which is going to be wonderful. If you've been following along with us, hi Johnny. Well, so happy to have you here again. I was just telling our audience, this is our sixth and final series of our coaching with you, as you have been teaching everyone your fantastic process of getting out of your head into your heart, where you move forward with purpose and passion. So we're excited to have you here today and to be working with Dana Linder, who is a Noom health and wellness coach. She's also my sister-in-law. She's a fabulous pretty sister, knows all the ways of pretty sisterhood, and has raised her daughters in the same fashion. She's got beautiful daughters and is a wonderful friend. So anyway, so glad to have you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Johnny, let's do what we do, which is
let's do it.
Kicking this off with you summarizing and teaching our audience a little bit about your process, what you do, and why it's important and how it helps.
Perfect. Okay, if you are in your head, you are human. If you're not in your head,
yay!
What's going on? Because we all get in our heads. I do, you do, we all do. In our head, this back part of our brain, it protects us. There is a survival part of this life, sometimes physical, but in the modern world, mental, emotional, even spiritual. So if you're in your head, you're protecting. That's okay. Nothing wrong with you. If you have feelings that are painful emotions, you can look and say, oh, I must be in my head right now. Nothing's wrong with me. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to protect. What am I trying to protect? If I'm in my heart, it's all about progress. I'm using the big part of my brain, sets us apart from the animals, able to choose from that part of our brain, the ability to be present. And really that part of our brain allows us to understand and work through what we're experiencing. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get present to some experiences where we are in our head. We're going to choose to go to our heart, and we're going to recognize, hey, this is a normal process, and I'm going to listen to my feelings because they're messages from my conscience. Our conscience is the light within us that's going to guide us. It's going to direct us, say, hey, this is unhealthy. This is healthy. No different than my, sense of smell. Do not eat that. That's just terrible. It'll make me feel sick. Or, oh, that fresh, loaf of bread, or, the fruit smells amazing, or whatever it is. Like, okay, this is something healthy. I can do this. Unhealthy, healthy. Our conscience is through our emotions saying, hey, it's unhealthy what you're thinking. You're in your head, and you need to choose a new way of thinking so that you think, feel, and do different. In other words, experience. That's what our experience is. So doesn't matter what you're experiencing. Let's have a new experience. I'll take you through the process, and you'll recognize that when I keep 3 commitments to my conscience, I will feel worthy and accepted, and I'll be able to progress, move forward. So let's cover the 3 commitments as we go through the process this time, just to mix it up a little bit. And and was it Dana?
Dana. Yes.
So great to meet you. I'm excited to be with you.
Thanks, Johnny. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So Dana, tell me what have you seen, heard, or if anything about this process, so I know where you're at.
The song "Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Heart" keeps coming into my mind.
Yes.
Did you want to sing that for us?
If I break out in song, that's fine. That's pretty much what I've heard. I've heard the process has been really fantastic. So not much more than that.
Okay, perfect.
I'm open to whatever you want to share with me.
So we'll start afresh. So really the first step of this process is, one, I'm taking you through the process in this call, but really it's the process. You've gone through this process throughout your whole life, and doesn't matter if it's something you're very good at or not good at or very present to. It doesn't, regardless of everybody, I'm talking to everybody right now, which is regardless of what you've experienced, we all go through this process. I'm hoping to give you a little bit of language, a framework, meaning a structure to be able to be like, oh, I'm in my head right now. And then to pick something and go through it. Could be something super meaningful, Or it could be something just like, oh, just someone cut me off. I'm like, wow, why did it get in my head? That doesn't even make sense. Like, I'm not like a crazy person, but I was crazy in that moment, So whatever it is to recognize, and it's also used to not only on the head side, but also heart side. Like, okay, how do I check in with myself to know, hey, where do I want to be going? What's my vision? And be led by that light to move forward in any area. So what's an area that you want to see progress? And we're just I'm going to take you through the process, use the framework language so you can recognize, okay, I already do this, but now I can be more specific, I can be more focused, and even support other people when, they're like, they might not say I'm in my head, but sometimes they might. And how do I work through this, or a kid, or, someone you love, and be like, oh, what's happening? What are you thinking? Oh, how does that feel? Okay, that feeling's telling you to change. So let's do this. Or from your heart, what would you think from your heart? Yes, that feeling is telling you to have courage. What would you do from there? So any thoughts of anything that comes to mind of an area where you're like, I want to see progress in this, or I know I'm in my head about this and I want to have a new experience?
Yeah, definitely. The one that comes to mind almost immediately is comparison, and comparison being the thief of joy. And I'm pretty good at recognizing when I'm doing it. There is that desire to just never do it. So I really appreciate what you said, that this is normal. It's normal for it's normal for us to have these feelings. It's normal for us to have these thoughts. And I've had to kind of reconcile with that I'm never going to just not compare myself to other people. But I would love to get better at recognizing what situations maybe I compare myself more often in. And can I prepare for that? Can I, if I can't eliminate it, can I navigate it better?
I love that. That's a great one, because
It's a
I know.
great
I mean,
one, and
I've
it's
done it the
come up
last couple of
before.
days.
This has
What were
come
you
up
saying,
before.
Callie?
Well, I was just saying it is a great one, and it has come up before, even in these
Mm,
series that we've been doing. So this is definitely something that is, a problem for women, especially.
totally. Yeah. I mean, in the last couple of days, I've done it myself. But how long do I stay in that mode of feeling? And when we're in the feeling of wrong and alone, that's how I recognize I'm in my head. So first thing I would do is recognize, okay, I'm in my head right now. Totally normal. My head is actually not bad. It's there to protect me. It's actually telling me, for example, if there's real danger, it's telling me, hey, get out of here. You're in danger. Like, there is something's off. Like, that guy doesn't seem right, or like, this is a scary situation, or that's a bear that could kill me, right? Like, head,
Fun.
fight or flight, survive, right? It's perfect. I need that. I'm grateful for that. And on the emotional level, comparison or any, other things that we do that are unhealthy, it's just that this doesn't feel good. Now, sometimes we misinterpret that feeling and say, oh, it must be true. That's very true with comparison, right? I'm comparing myself to someone else. It feels terrible. And I think, oh, it must be true. Like, they're great and I'm bad, or vice, even opposite, comparing them to me, like, oh, those little peons, those minions, and me, like, we either way, it actually doesn't feel good. And we need to look at our thoughts. And so the key to the process is to recognize, okay, I'm in my head, totally normal. I'm comparing right now, but why does it not feel good? It doesn't feel good because I've broken 3 commitments to my conscience. So the feeling's not saying it's true or not, right? The comparison might even be accurate. They are better than me. They're doing this very well. I'm doing it very poorly, right? That could be true. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's still unhealthy.
Well,
So
it's still what we think about it,
mm,
because the truth is always the truth, and it could affect us or not, depending on what we're thinking about it.
yeah,
Which is why I like your process, because when you stop and ponder this situation and you go back to, okay, well, what am I thinking about this? How's that making me feel? What am I then doing? Because when we compare, and I've said this before, we can think that we're not good enough as we measure ourselves against it, or we can think, hey, that's inspiring,
And motivating.
and it can motivate me to be better. Or we could think, and this is what I would love women to do more, and it's part of this Pretty Sisters mission, is to think, wow, they're doing great, and want to cheer them on and be
mm,
excited for them, and not and recognize that we can all do great. We can all be wonderful, that it's not her or me type of situation. But anyway, go ahead. So we're going to talk about how to think differently about things.
I love that. Basically, I love how you said that, which is, oh, I'm comparing from my head right now. And it's not, comparison isn't bad from my heart, right? I'm comparing notes, like what's working, what's not, what are they doing? I'm comparing, but it's not a less than, more than, it's just a, oh, because we can't get away from it, but I can recognize, oh, I'm in my head at this time of comparing versus, oh, like I naturally want to understand what's happening. Why are they doing that? What am I not doing? Because I want to get better, or yeah, I love that. So from our heart. And so when we're in our head, we're breaking 3 commitments to our conscience. That's why it's painful. The painful emotion is saying, you have broken these commitments. That's it. That's the message. So first commitment is to be respectful to ourselves and to others. That's it. If I am not being respectful with my thoughts about myself or others, it doesn't feel good. I feel wrong. That wrong feeling is saying, this thought is wrong. This is unhealthy. What you're doing is wrong. Don't do this. No different than, hey, it's wrong to eat that, that food that smells disgusting. There's something wrong with the food. Sense of smell looks wrong. Like, don't do it. We know that physically. We know, like, 5 senses. Okay, I shouldn't have eaten that. That was bad. Or I shouldn't have smelt that. That was terrible.
Don't touch the
hot
stove. We
I
know
touched the
to
hot
stop.
stove, right? That I did something wrong. I touched the hot stove. Not I'm wrong. That's the shift. I have a thought that's wrong. It's unhealthy. And once again, even saying that word wrong, I did something wrong. It sounds like, oh no, like from my head versus like, oh, from my heart, like, oh, I did something wrong. I had a thought that was unhealthy.
Whoopsie daisy.
That was wrong, right? Like, that's okay. No big deal. But if in our head, it's like,
whoopsie daisy. Sorry.
I love that.
Squirrel in my head. Go ahead.
I love that. So it feels wrong and I feel wrong. So broke my first commitment, look at my thoughts. And this is the one for everybody to look at. We think I'm a respectful person, but maybe we're not with our thoughts about ourselves and even sometimes other people. And it doesn't mean disrespectful, like we're like some terrible ogre. It's just like, it's unhealthy. If it doesn't feel good, look at my thoughts. Disrespectful. Not aligned with my conscience. So second commitment to our conscience is to be our best. So I'm going to be my best, and I'm going to accept the best of others, and I'm going to accept my best. So I'm going to be my best. My best, the first part of that is like, I'm just going to do what I can. And then even though I fall short, I'm not, my best isn't perfect. I'm going to accept my best and the best of others.
That is so
when I do that, I
freeing.
feel accepted. Yes.
It's so freeing when all you have to do is your best, because when we are comparing, we are looking at other people that are often better than us in some way, especially if you are an achiever, like I know you are, and you're wanting to do things better, whether it's, in whatever, a sport or in your career. There's going to always, thank goodness, there's always someone who's better than us, because that's how we learn and grow.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. But when we do recognize, oh, I only have to do my best and my best is good enough, but that I can just improve and practice and do better, small and simple steps forward, it takes the weight off. It's very freeing.
Johnny, can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, go for it.
So you said be your best and accept the best of other people. One of the things that I struggle with as a coach is helping people understand what their best is, because often, especially when we talk about comparison, they don't feel good enough, right? There's more I know I should be doing, or even more I know I could be doing, just like that other person is doing. And so how do you walk through someone, and you can use me here, how do I know when I'm giving my best, and how do we know when other people are giving their best and we don't have to, demand more or expect more of other people?
Oh, I love that question. That's great, because I don't think we've a little bit dived into this but I think it's a great thing to dive into a little bit more about this second commitment. So
Yes.
I'm going to say the whole commitment over again, and then I'll answer that question. So the second commitment is to be your best and accept the best of yourself and others. So there's really 2 parts to that. Be your best. That is the more subtle part of the equation. It's really a very internal, your conscience lets you know, hey, you're not being your best. You might have done something, say, amazing. You worked really hard. You've grown. You put yourself out there, let's say, and you're like, wow, I really stretched myself. But there's a little part of you that says, wait, there's a little more. What about this? But you're like, wait, I just did all this work. What do you mean? Like I just moved forward. It's that small voice in you that's like, hey, but also this. Oh, what about this? Very subtle. The accept your best and the best of others is usually it's closer to the disrespect one, which is when you're disrespectful, it doesn't feel good. You can recognize it like, ooh, this doesn't feel right, right? It's sour milk, smells bad, tastes bad. It's maybe not as strong as the sour milk, but it's milk that you're like, you taste it and you're like, this seems off. Like I'm not accepting my best. Sometimes it's just all the way sour milk, but I'm not accepting my best. And how do I know that? I don't feel accepted. So the first step, if you're talking about helping someone move forward, so as you're coaching people, the first step is they have to first have thoughts that are respectful. If they're keeping that first commitment, and then second commitment, accepting themselves, accepting where they're at, accepting where they're at physically. Like if you're coaching someone, like, here's my weight, here's what I'm looking at, whatever it is, like, here is where I'm at. I accept this is it. And I accept that this is okay because all my choices, life and experience have led me to this. I'm going to accept my best. I'm going to accept the best of others. Once I'm there, only then can I really be my best. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm not accepting where I'm even at, then it's so hard to take the next three, like you're helping them take 1 or 2 or 3 steps, right? But if they think they're further than they're at, they're like, I'm way over. Yeah. I'm so great at this. And they're like 10 steps down the road. Mm-hmm. It's pretty hard to take the real next step, right? Yeah. And if they think, I'll never do this, why would I even take a step? Because I'm 100 steps back from where I need to be, which is 101. I need to take 101 steps. And you're like, no, take the next step. So the key is to recognize, be respectful, accept your best. Then at that point, they feel worthy of worth because they're being respectful. When we're being respectful to ourselves, we're saying you're of worth, or to others. And when we feel worthy, we want to progress. We're in our heart. We're out of our head and into our heart. When we are being our best, accepting our best and the best of others, then we feel accepted. So if I feel worthy and accepted, which is actually really all that we want, that's all of us. That's what we really want to feel. We want to feel worthy, accepted. We do all kinds of things to do it, right? Yeah. Even some of the people that you're working with, they're like, I want to lose weight. I want to do this. I want to look this way. Because they want
they have to do that to be worthy and accepted, which is it's really the reverse. You need to feel worthy and accepted to be able to take the steps to get healthier. Totally. So we often think backwards.
It's the reverse. It's like and some people even do, like, I lost the weight, I look amazing. And it's like, well, now I'm just as critical as I was back then about, about this line. And I used to not even think about this little line on my face. And now, I just thought about my weight. Now I just think about this line. And what are people thinking about this? Like, it's like, no, I'm not being respectful. I'm not accepting my best. I'm not accepting my body or whatever it may be. And so once I change that mental and emotional thought process, I change thoughts so I feel different, so I'll do different, then it's easier to progress. Now, you can use your head to motivate, right? I look terrible. I hate this. I'm going to move forward. But usually for most people, that doesn't last. Some people can use that drive, and those are the people that, build the big businesses, and they're like, I'm going to prove to everybody that this is wrong. And some people have that where, like, they can just be in their head and then they can go for their lifetime, right? Just proving people wrong or whatever. Most people don't. It's like, I hate how I feel. I'm so disgusting. And then a week or 2 weeks, and then it falls off. So I covered a lot there. So tell me what you heard and what stuck out. Yeah. What'd you hear from that?
Yeah, the accepting piece, I think, is important, which really I might also say acknowledging where you're at, maybe giving appreciation for where you're at and for what you're doing. And then the worthy piece, I am worthy, I am enough. I think is important, especially for people who struggle similar to me with comparison, that where you're at is enough. And, you know, worthy, the danger with worthy is the only other option is unworthy. So
Yeah.
the danger with if you don't feel worthy, oftentimes that means people feel that they are not worthy. But then we just go back to the cycle. We go back to the commitments that no, you are worthy. You're working on it. You're acknowledging where you're at, what your best is, and where you can go to really appreciate and acknowledge that. Is that a good summary?
That's awesome. I love that. I
She's a
love
great
that.
student.
Totally. Great student. I can tell you coach and, do all this. So, but yeah, it's awesome to recognize, okay, if here's the mental shift, right? If I don't feel worthy or of worth, it's because I have thoughts that are disrespectful. Period. The end.
Mhm.
We all, not almost everybody I talk to is like, yes, everybody is of worth. Everybody's of value. Like yes, I believe that. But I don't feel that about myself. Well, because your thoughts aren't respectful. It'd be like, going kind of this example, which is like, if you told the child, like, hey, you loser idiot, why don't you do more, da 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 da, it would feel wrong unless you're complete, like some people are completely in their head where they just live there, right? But if you heard a child, be told that, it would feel so wrong.
Yeah.
Not because anything besides that, like, oh, that's not healthy, that's not for them, that's not true, they are of worth. Now the child might have done something terrible and they need to make a change, but their worth doesn't change, or worth doesn't fluctuate if we do or not do. It's just, I'm of worth. If I'm being respectful, I feel worthy. If I'm accepting my best, I feel accepted. Now, we don't want to just feel worthy, accepted, and then not do what we're supposed to do. So that's where we got to also be our best, which leads us to the third commitment, which is I got to be present, recognize, okay, I have broke the commitment. Something feels off. It could be very like, oh, this feels terrible. Or it could just be very something like, I feel like there's more. There's something more. I don't know what it is. I'm going to get present to what I'm experiencing, thinking, feeling, and doing, and then choose to go from my head, my heart.
Which
I'm
I
going to
think
go align with my conscience.
when you brought up acknowledging, I think that is another word for what Johnny's
Oh,
third
yeah.
step is getting present to where you're at and what you need to do. And I think the acknowledging or the getting present is super helpful. And I would think too with your coaching, as you were saying, because to me, part of the getting present is not living in the past, regrets of all the things I should have done.
Right.
And then not worrying too much about the future either, where the plague of anxiety is such a problem for people nowadays because we're so worried about what's going to happen in the future. But if we can leave both of those aside and just get really present to how what we're thinking, feeling, and doing in the moment, then that's where we can take back our power and make some shifts and get aligned. That's where you get present, you acknowledge what's going on, leave the past, leave the future. We're right here and now. And then can we be respectful? Can we be our best? Those things.
Yeah.
And I think one point that part of your question, I don't think I fully dove into, which is, how do you know what your best is? Well, it's that third commitment. Once you're present, if you feel worthy and accepted, and you're willing to be present and really check in, okay, where am I at? What's the next step? What is my best? What does that look like? We actually will know. The problem is when it's combined with other head thoughts of what I should be and all that. But if we get rid of all the head thoughts, and the best way to do this is just write them out in my head. And there's a worksheet I have that in my head, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing enough, I'm failing, like I should have done that, get it all out, get all the thoughts out that are unhealthy, that don't feel good, that in my heart, start writing. So if you want to get present to where you're at, just in my head and then in my heart. And then by the time you're done with the heart side, you're like, oh, here's where I'm at, here's where I'm not being respectful or being my best, or here's a new way of thinking. And then from there I can say, okay, the next step is this. And the next, 5 steps looks like something in the nature of this. This is the goal. I'm clear on it. And it's from my heart. And here's the next step. So what are you hearing from, we covered a ton there, but what are you hearing? What's sticking out to you, or any questions?
being present. I'm obviously journaling is so impactful on so many levels, but being present by that self-awareness, and that's such a key part of any process when trying to improve behavior. And so, um, but you can't do that if you're not aware of it. And
Right.
in that process of journaling, in that process of writing things down, that's where it comes out. It's interesting because I've always been a journaler. Since I was young, I like to journal. I like to record keep. Especially as a child, I was very emotional. So it helped me to get it out on paper. And I think that's one thing I would say to people listening is it doesn't have to be like a bullet point. It can be more emotion and expression. It doesn't have to be I do this and then I do this and then I think this. I mean, I can see how that's helpful, but not everyone works that way. Some people just need to say, this is how I feel right now, this is what I'm thinking, or here's what I thought when this experience happened. So um I don't, I'm at the point where right now in my life where I don't necessarily, in order to be present, I don't need to get it out on paper, but I can call it out. I call out the feeling, I call out the thought specifically in my mind. And you kind of touched on this, Johnny, that I am not being respectful to myself because I'm doing this. And the and the time it takes for me to do that and then accept myself, be present, and move on, it is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Right. And that's where we want to be, is shorter and shorter and shorter. That process can move fast. And I just started something new with work, and it's all of those old emotions, all of those old comparison feelings are coming up. And so I'm back to the process taking a little bit longer. Um, but I don't necessarily write it out. So I'm like trying to think, should I go back to writing out my thoughts? And I probably should. Right now, I still kind of call them out when they happen. Um, so
Well, I
Yeah.
think that's great because that is where Johnny begins with your process, is teaching to do, he calls it pen pondering, to, write down what you're, in your head, what you're thinking, and then in your heart, and kind of flipping it. And like you said, once you practice that for a while, I think it is good to start on pen. If you're new to this, if you're new to listening to this and you want to practice, it is helpful to begin writing it out methodically, but then over time, you can get to where you're jotting down notes on your phone or just thinking it through on your head once you really master the process and with it. I mean, what would you say, Johnny?
Yeah, I think that's great. So the different ways I would describe this, it sounds like you're already doing what I call a snapshot, right? You're like, oh, I have this thought, or maybe and maybe this is actually another level. You're recognizing the feeling. Oh, I'm feeling this. Make sure you connect.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking this.
Yes.
This is the thought, and I feel this, and so I'm doing this. Right? That's the snapshot. Boom. In my head, this. In my heart, I would be thinking, feeling, and doing this. So keep doing that. Like, boom, I'm feeling something. Oh, I'm thinking this. That's why it feels this way, and I'm doing this. And then with the language of like, oh, it feels this way because it's not respectful. It feels this way because I'm not accepting my best. I need to be present. So I broke those 3 commitments. Gives you hopefully some language, recognize it. And then I would say, especially if you're starting something new, or if there's more emotions than just like, ooh, this doesn't feel good. Gone. It's over. Done. Taken care of. That's where I pull out the pen and I go like, okay, I'm going to really get this out. There's something underlying here. There's something deeper than just like this thought, or if the thought is reoccurring over and over, I'm going to really write, feel all the head side. This is terrible. This feels, oh, what am I? And then eventually you start going to the heart. And eventually the last part of that, so there's the head, heart, snapshot. And then the last one is really asking yourself, and I find this is easiest to do on paper. You can do it. Sometimes it'll come, but it's like, where is this coming from? What is the, it's not even about, say, the moment, the new job or the new experience or the new thing you're doing at work. If you start asking, where's this coming from? It can bring up, this is coming from when you're, a teenager and this thing happened and you haven't fully processed it. I know you're like in your heart about it, meaning you feel okay about it, but you haven't really gone to your head and really like expressed everything you wanted to say, or, and and if it was on another person, it would have been unhealthy, right? But like getting after them. But I never really did that even to myself. And because I never did that, I wasn't able to fully go to my heart. So I still have this concern of what will they think about me because this other person judged me or said, hey, why are you doing that? That looks stupid, or whatever it was years ago. So I think then a new possibility for you, Dana, is to say, okay, I already naturally do this. I've been doing this process. I'm going to go deeper, and to the point of like, I'm going to really work on my previous stuff. I'm going to ask and see what comes up about what's the deeper thing here, and pull those up and then take those through this process. And Callie will make sure you have the sheet. But you're already naturally doing it, but it's just great to have that form and be like, oh, I just fill it out, and then get deeper on those. What are you hearing from that?
Yeah, it really comes down to what are your beliefs and values and how did you get there? So if I see a coworker who, by comparison is doing better than I am, why does that matter to me? What belief about myself or about the situation do I hold dear that has been broken or challenged? I think challenged is probably a better word. And where does that stem from? Does it stem from me being a perfectionist? Does it stem from, me developing this belief that there can only be one good person, that there's only one winner? And yes, I think that's very valuable to go back and understand, why do you hold this belief? Why do you hold this value? And is it true even today? And does it hold true?
And I love too what you said, Johnny, that you go back and you ask yourself, because it's your belief system, that isn't probably true, that you've got to debunk and go in and find. And I love that you teach that our conscience is what is to be the guide, that we do have the answers, and it's just kind of locked in there from our childhood and our experiences of the past. And it doesn't have to be scary to go back and kind of figure this out. And through this pen pondering process, you can really ask yourself, what am I thinking? And just ask and ask as you go deeper and deeper, like you said, and just get all of that out. It will come up. I guess that's the thing that I want you to know, that when you will be thoughtful and ask yourself with real intention to make these shifts, you will get the answers that come up. And it could be layers deep, and so you may have to work through it a few times. This is a process that the reason we're doing this through repetition, so that you learn how to do it, is so that you can coach yourself and your family, your children, and do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
It's not something you're not gonna just all of a sudden write this out and then never compare yourself again.
Yeah, or solve all of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're not. That's just not how we're wired. We are going to run into things again and again because we're learning and we're growing, and it's a process. But you can help yourself do it and do it easier.
Awesome. I love that. So here's the next step. Let's do this. Let's go through the process, do a snapshot of comparison. So I'm going to take you through the process, and then I'll ask a question about going, where is it deeper from? I'm going to give you a second to pause, think about it, see if something comes up. Sometimes it will be like, oh, this is where it's coming from. Sometimes you need to do that writing. But I'll go first, because this is one that, like I just told you, just barely I was doing this. So, I was comparing myself and I'm judging myself. So I'll do a quick snapshot myself about what I was just doing, and then I'll take you through the process. So in my head, I was thinking, I should have done this so long ago. What an idiot am I that I haven't been doing this, that I know I should have done. I should have reached out to this person and done this specific thing, like years ago. Like how dumb is that? And then it brings up not only that experience, but other times where I pushed off something and therefore there's been, long-term consequences, and I didn't.
Ourselves up over that kind of stuff all the time.
Right.
I think people can relate to that.
So
Why did I do that?
Yesterday, right? And I think that, and how do I feel? I feel frustrated, right? That was my main emotion, just like frustrated, like, come on. Why did you just do this? It's not like some crazy epic thing that would take, it's like, why didn't you do this? So what I did though, in that moment, when that, a long time ago, I'm sure I had the thought like, oh, I'll do this later, or the timing, or I don't know, I'm not ready, or whatever. And I didn't feel confident. So what I do, I put it off, right? So if I were to keep doing that, I would just be like, well, it's been so long, and I wouldn't do anything. From my heart, I think, okay, well, I'm doing it now. Here we go. Like, I got this. I'm going to reach out. I'm
Better
going to
late
make
than
this happen.
never.
I'm going to move forward, and I am more prepared, and that feels good. And here's what I'm going to do. And so I do it. Right. So that's what I did yesterday. Right. So boom, went through that process. So Dana, let's pick an experience, where you've compared, and you can be very specific or broad. Like, you guys have no idea what that was, and that's great. You don't know what it was. You don't know if it was something super meaningful, or if it was like, oh, I should have taken out the trash, and I said I would, and my wife said you didn't. No, that wasn't the example, but it could be, like, I said I would do it, I didn't. Like, it can be so simple, or it can be, sometimes devastating, right? Mm-hmm. So but yeah, so what's an experience where, can you think of an experience where you compared?
Sure.
A specific one. Okay. What was the thought?
My numbers aren't as good as this other person's.
Awesome. And how does that feel?
I am not as good as this other person because they got more numbers.
Okay. So you felt like less than, or what? Yeah. The feeling like in that moment?
So I am not good at this because my numbers weren't the best.
Okay.
So I am not good enough.
I'm not good enough. Okay. And so is that thought respectful?
No, because I'm always worthy.
It's not respectful. Hold on.
Well,
let's do this. Is it
a thought, but how does it make you feel? You never really answered that. Is it sad? Is it?
Oh, it's
frustrated,
sad.
Like sad.
Yeah, it's disappointed.
Mm-hmm. Disappointed. And is that accepting your best?
Well, see, this is where I go back to, wasn't my best. And upon reflection, it wasn't my best. I wasn't willing to put in some extra time, extra effort, not because I couldn't, but I didn't and wouldn't. So in that sense, it wasn't my best. It wasn't my best. And then again, that makes me feel sad. It makes me feel sad. I wouldn't give my best.
So,
but then could you accept your best in that moment? Because maybe you didn't give time because you were giving time to kids, or you were doing other projects,
Yeah.
And so that's where we can beat ourselves up over not giving our best. But what you're asking us to do is just accept where we're at so that we can be free of these feelings to give our best again. Right?
Yeah, and I love that we're diving into this, because this is like the nitty gritty. This is the nitty gritty where our brain goes like, wait, but I could have done more. So that could have been, I wasn't my best.
Exactly.
Like, you're never as there is always more you can do. You are failing in every area of your life at some level. You are not being the best, being your best at some level. Like, doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
Right. I don't care if it's like
we do this to ourselves.
Yeah.
And the stupidest example just popped in my mind, which is like clipping my fingernails. Like, I didn't do the best. I'm sure there's someone else who's better. I could have taken another 5 more seconds and got that cuticle, but it kind of, so that's not the point though, because you don't care about your cuticles or whatever enough. But about this, it means something. So accepting your best is really accepting yourself. I accept that I'm human, and that this is where I'm at when it comes to my priorities, when it comes to investing time. This is where I'm at with my ability to sell, or to connect, or this is my best. This is where I'm at. It's really just getting and goes along with the presence. Like, here's where I'm at. And I accept where I'm at. Now, from my heart, then I can say, okay, I'm ready to be my best. I want to be my best. I want to be better. So where's the next thing. But what are you hearing from that, Dana?
I love the acceptance. I accept where I'm at. And like most people, I'm very good at helping other people do that. You gave the example about fingernails. My thought was I often will hear people say, I had a great week with my diet, but I went out to eat and I overate and I blew it. And of course, like as their health coach, I'm not saying you're right. You blew it. You didn't do your best.
Forget it.
And they care about it. So it's not even like for you the cuticle that they didn't care about. Like they really care about this. But it was the circumstance that they were in. And so helping them find acceptance is important. And so for me, when I look at those numbers and I don't feel, makes me sad that maybe I didn't do as much as I could have or should have, accepting the reframe, accepting what I did do, celebrating that, and then and I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about, and then what? Therefore what?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so once you then say, because here's the thing. So so from our head, the problem is I don't accept my best. And it might even motivate me, like, I'm going to work so hard next week, but then I hate it, right? Because I'm like, I'm doing it to win or to whatever, versus like, okay, here's where I was. I got to get present. Is this next level what I want? Yes. First of all, the problem is it's compared to them, right? So it's like, there's things that it's awesome to have a winner loser. Sports is a great example, experience. It's okay to have a winner and a loser. And if you want to play your, like your work experience, or there's a winner and then there's all the losers, and I want to compete, go for it, right? Go for it, especially if you do it from your heart. If you do it from your head, I'm going to say, I mean, you can do it, but eventually
it's not going to feel good.
It's just not going to feel great long term, because really what you want to do is feel worthy and accepted. So if you had a different experience, and I'll maybe go back to kind of like the being your best type thing, but if a different experience from your heart playing this win or lose game is to feel like that, I lost and I'm competing and I'm a competitor and I hate losing.
Yeah.
And I am also of worth, and I accept that I'm going to accept not only this defeat, but I accept where I'm at. And then I'm also going to get present and say, what do I need to do to win? Because it doesn't matter if they're competing against you or not. It's like, the competition is part of what I want. I like it. I'm okay. I like the pain of losing and joy of suffering. Not that I like the pain of losing, if that makes sense, but I'm okay. I don't want to just be this. I'm okay with the deep, ups and downs. Like that's part of this part of why I do this. That's totally cool. Some people, if they have dips and valleys, they're just going to be out. They won't do it anymore. So don't compete, right? Compete with yourself, and meaning not even your numbers. Did I do better or less? Like, did I really give everything I have? Like do more of the mental emotional work of the worthy accepted. Everybody's different. But if you're like, no, I am okay with being a winner or a loser, feeling that pain, that's great. Go for it. But I go back to my heart, and I don't let that affect how I feel of worth or accepted in any other area, right? It's just like, when I'm in this mode, I'm going for it, but I'm not going to let it change what my conscience is telling me that I need to do when it comes to the other areas that really have impact for me and other people.
I love that you bring up that competition is okay and healthy, because I think often in this world we do want everyone to be a winner, and we want no one to feel bad. And while we want to feel worthy and accepted, that's what we want to cling to as being important. But the winning and the losing is real world stuff, and we need, especially as we're celebrating the Olympics right now, or we're watching that, it's wonderful. It's fun to see people do their best, and to have that form of comparison is healthy. And those are probably those people, like you're saying, that want to compete, that are just really tough on that. So I love that you brought that up, that if that's your style, go for it, because whatever motivates you is fine and good. Just make sure you're feeling worthy and accepted and in your heart.
And I might have said this, but if your goal is to feel worthy and accepted, it's easy. Make that shift. Make sure you're there. If your goal is to win and you want to feel the highs and lows, awesome. Dive in, feel those highs and lows, but make sure the foundation is worthy and accepted, right? This does not affect my long-term view about myself. I'm not going to bring this back and then spread, I don't feel worthy and accepted on other people. It's like, Oh, I lost. I hate that. Like, I've had, I'm play a lot less sports myself, my kids, and there's losses where I'm just like, oh my gosh, or the ref did this, or like, and I want to feel that pain. I also want to feel the high of when, like, oh, dude, like, look what you just did. Like, you pushed through that, you made that shot, like that. I want to feel both those. That's why I coach. That's why I ref sports, because I want to feel and be a part of that. So that's okay. But I don't go home and think, oh my gosh, like I didn't, or my son didn't do this, and he's less than, all of that.
Yeah.
So we covered a lot, but Dana, what are you hearing from some of this?
So from this particular experience we're talking about, where I saw the numbers, I didn't feel like I had done my best. That made me sad. And I didn't ever approach the feeling or the thought that I wasn't worthy. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough for this job. I'm not good enough for this experience. I didn't get to that point, but I did have to try and understand, is this an accurate measurement that I care about? Do I actually care about those numbers? And what I came to was, no, I actually don't. Numbers don't tell the whole story. They didn't tell what I did in that moment, or through that course of time. They're just numbers, and numbers can be very meaningful to people. But I recognize within myself, they're actually not meaningful to me. So then I had to go back and I had to think about what can I use to measure my success, my progress with this time? If those numbers aren't meaningful to me and they don't tell the story that's important to me, I feel worthy, but I still would like to understand, because there is that competitive side of me that I want to do well. Maybe not comparing myself to other people, but I want to do well for myself. So what's important to me? And then I was able to work through that, finding new ways to measure my progress, not those numbers that are just data that I feel is black and white and doesn't tell the whole story. So for me, that's kind of how I worked through it. And I have a better understanding now of what measurement is important to me. What do I look like? What analysis do I go through to measure my progress? And because I want to do better, that is important to me. I'm worthy, I accept myself, but I also want to be better and do better and perform well at this new experience that I have.
That's so cool, because you dove in, you felt the emotion, you did everything we're talking about, the example of feeling the and then you said, okay, here's how I'm going to compete with myself and feel really accepted about it. Here's the question. So often, sometimes at that point where you're like, where does this come from? It's like, oh, there's some head stuff I got to solve through. But I'm going to ask almost the heart side, which is, where did that ability, where did you develop? I want you to, and it might take a second to even come through, and it might not come through, maybe it's something you think through after, but where did you develop the skill, ability? Where did you see it modeled to say, not feel that emotion, not make it mean you're wrong and alone? You feel, you like, no, I'm still worthy and accepted. And then also to create a new way of being, a new way of moving forward, a new way of doing. What are some thoughts on where did that come from? How did you develop that?
Yeah, really and truly, it's practicing with other people. I'm really good at helping other people walk through that process. And for sure, the training in coaching has been exceptionally helpful. I have a ton of clients that I get to practice this on, but because I practice it so frequently with them, I try to treat myself like my own best friend, like my own best health coach.
Being respectful to yourself. I mean, that's that process of
Definitely.
doing that.
And the process of accepting others and where they're at. One of the things that we talk about as a coach is unconditional positive regard. And that's something I've had to really work on as a coach, that you go into the process truly accepting people and where they're at and letting them have the journey. If I'm going to let other people do that, why would I not do that for myself? And I'm sure you guys have touched on this, that people are the nurturer people, the caretakers are generally hardest on themselves. They will allow all sorts of acceptance and leniency to other people, but not for themselves. And so as a coach, we often talk about, what would you say to somebody else? Would you say these things to anybody else? And of course not. And I would never, I would never tell myself or tell a client I'm working with, gosh, you did not do enough because those numbers are just not showing. Those numbers are just not good enough. I would never say that. Why would I say that to myself? I have two, and it comes to, of course, self-efficacy, self-respect. I care too much about myself and I value myself in order to not speak kindly to myself.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. It's cool to hear your experience of coaching other people, mentoring yourself, going through the process.
Such a good coach, Dana.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think I had a thought. Oh, might have lost it. But just the idea that, hey, what we're all trying to do in this life is to feel worthy and accepted. And if we have a ability to get present, work through what we're feeling, then we can progress. And the key thing I want to summarize with kind of a lot of what we've been talking about today is if you're hearing this and be like, okay, I want that skill set, start with recognizing, okay, I'm breaking these 3 commitments. I can start to keep them. And the big overall thing is this: what if my whole life I've been misunderstanding my emotions? I thought they were telling me this, but they're not. I thought they were telling me I'm broken, something's wrong with me, I must be less than. When I feel sadness, I think, oh no, something's wrong with me. When I feel anger, I must be broken. When I feel disgust or embarrassed or whatever I'm feeling, is that those are bad. I just want to feel happy, peaceful joy, right? Or whatever it is. And they're just a message. And it's a message telling me to change my thought. That's it. That's actually, that painful emotion is saying you are of such worth that the thought you're having doesn't align with your value and who you really are. And I don't care who you are, what you've done, how terrible things you've done, that like it doesn't feel good because it's not for you. Mm-hmm. And if hopefully, I love this conversation today because it's been so focused on the possibility of and reliving and talking through how to go head to heart and looking at it from different angles. But it all comes down to, do I understand the emotions I'm feeling? If it doesn't feel good, I'm probably misunderstanding. I can get present, keep those commitments, and really take myself through this process to have a new experience. But if all you walk away with is like, I don't feel good, and that feeling is saying I'm of value, there's something of value here because I have thoughts that are unhealthy, that'll start to change your life. And so for everybody listening, it's been so awesome, Dana, for you to hear you go through how you do that. You go from like, oh, this feeling is telling me, and you're making that change and not making it mean what it doesn't mean. So I've loved that you've kind of given us a model or an example of, hey, I don't make it mean this. And of course, all of us at some point had to learn this, and we have done it, right? All 3 of us have had experiences where we've made it mean what it doesn't mean. But It's cool to hear as we're going through it together and sharing, like, yeah, like, we do that a lot less, and we still do it, but that's okay because nothing's wrong with us.
Yeah.
So,
and we can change our thoughts. And I love that. If you didn't catch this, I just want to point it out as you were summarizing, Johnny, and saying that what to do if we're recognizing these thoughts and or how we feel, we're not feeling good about ourselves. And it's telling the message that we misunderstood all this time is telling us to change. What you said to do first was to change your thoughts. We always want to feel or show up in the world as something different, but it begins, your process begins with changing your thoughts. They're going to affect how you feel and what you do. Yeah. So that's empowering, you guys. It gives you all the control to recognize if you're sad, if you're not doing well in your life in some way, you just get to change your thoughts. And we've given you these steps to walk through this process. And I hope that it has been helpful, that it's given you some tools to work with. And it's recorded. There's 6 different live sessions of watching Johnny coach, which is so valuable. If you've stumbled upon this, I invite you to find these and go back and watch the practice sessions so that you can become a master of this. There's no reason why you can't coach yourself, coach your family, coach your friends, really make some positive change. It all begins with ourselves, with, learning and practicing this on yourself. And then, I invite you to share it with others as well. So thank you again, Johnny, for offering this free series. This is the last of our 6-part series with Johnny Covey. Thank you so much. You've been tremendous in offering your time and value to all of our pretty sisters. Dana, thank you for being our guest today.
This was fun.
And it was so fun to have 2 coaches really on to collaborate and talk.
Yeah,
And
all 3 of us rocking
sure.
it. It's fun. It's kind of a fun last kind of different, right? Because all 3 of us are doing this process. And I love that. And I do want to share one last thing before we leave. I had this thought. Those who are watching, if you're watching this and recognizing like, ooh, there's something that I'm feeling that doesn't feel good. Am I making comparisons about myself, my experience versus Dana's experience versus Callie's versus Johnny's, my experience where I should be? To recognize, like, as you go through this process, as you're watching any of these, if you have that experience where you are comparing, even watching this, how exciting to recognize, wow, I am having this feeling going on right now. Watching this, I'm comparing, thinking, oh, I wish I was there. I wish I was able to say what Dana said or whatever it may be, to recognize like, oh, that's totally normal. Nothing's wrong with me. There is no difference between the 3 of us and you when it comes to your worth, and that your best is accepted. You're worthy regardless of if you are better or worse than any of us at whatever we're doing. Like, your worth is accepted. Your best is accepted, and you are worthy. So that's the last thing I really want to leave is everybody to recognize, if you don't feel of worth, it's just because you have thoughts. And if you beat yourself up like, oh, I have thoughts, oh, how terrible am I that have these thoughts? They probably have come because of other experience and outside forces. And you can also let go of them and their influence over you by recognizing, okay, I feel pain because I am of worth. These painful thoughts are painful because I'm such of worth. That every one of you out there are pretty sisters, or handsome brothers, or whatever, whatever the male version of that is. And so I just want to leave that kind of as ending this whole series. I'm so grateful for you, Callie, and having me on and bring these amazing people to connect with. But just to leave on that, you are worthy.
I love that.
That does not change. That is the truth, and your best is accepted. And I'm grateful for the chance to share this with all of you.
Well, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that to our closing, because that is exactly the message of Pretty Sisters, is for you to feel pretty, to know that you are pretty. And pretty means that you are worthy and accepted, that you're enough, that you are beautiful just the way you are, inside and out. And that is our closing message for you today. Thank you so much for joining us. And we invite you to continue watching on our future podcasts. And stay pretty and have a wonderful week. We'll catch you next week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.